product's going to move forward with or without us. They're going to make those decisions. They have their timeline. They're going to build their product. We have to be able to be in lockstep with them, if not ahead of them, with these insights to really influence what product's being built and make sure it's the right product market fit.
I'm like crazy excited to come to work every day. So being members first is at the center of everything that we do at LinkedIn.
The member experience is a two-way street, and they're sharing their opinions and their insights with us so we can make better products and better decisions.
And ultimately, they're getting a chance to create an experience on LinkedIn that serves their needs best.
We recently redesigned our desktop. In doing so, it's the first major redesign in our entire history, and we are going to flip the switch, which is pretty high risk to flip a switch on a major redesign. So there was an opportunity for us to leverage Vision Critical and bring members into a beta platform and get some early feedback at scale.
When you move so quickly, how do you do it in a way that's thoughtful enough that helps our customers or end users?
We do a lot of research. You can go back to the same person over and over again to get that longitudinal data. So it allows us to do a deeper dive.
I think it's night and day changed the way that I work. Vision Critical has been able to allow us to quickly turn around those insights so that we're really adding value as a product marketer to the product and engineering teams versus really being a bottleneck for them.
We have a finite resources of team. Like, yes, we will grow with the demand for research, but still we're going to do it wisely. Using Vision Critical allows us to do that.
There is not another tool in our toolkit that would be able to get that type of insight back in a way that would be credible to our stakeholders compared to the insight communities. All right, so thank you so much for having me. And I think as you guys watch that video, a few of you guys are thinking, how can I extract more value out of my insight communities? But the vast majority of you guys are thinking a much more important question than that. And it is, how many takes did it take for that guy to shoot that basketball over his head and actually make it? And I can tell you, the answer is 4. 4, right? Not bad. So yeah, this whole market research thing doesn't work out for me. I'm officially announcing my intention to join the Golden State Warriors as the 3rd member of the Splash Brothers, right after Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. But no, seriously, so thank you so much for having me. It's an incredible honor to come up here and talk to you guys about what it means to be members first at LinkedIn and the role that our insight communities play in that. In addition to just being really grateful and really honored, I have to say, I'm actually really nervous. And it's not because of the 300 or so folks here. You guys are fine. There's actually 3 people in the audience that I'm nervous about, and it's these guys. So my family's actually with us, and they're sitting right there. Thank you. And the reason why I'm nervous is that the kid in the left and the kid in the middle, Jake is on the left, my other one, and Ryder on the right, my younger one, they have no qualms about telling it like it is. So afterwards, they might be like, Dad, you were boring. And so I'm a little bit nervous about them, but really, I'm afraid of my wife. Because I actually have had a traumatic experience when it comes to presenting and my wife. And I'll explain that a little bit. This is a meeting that I had with the market research team at LinkedIn, and I'm doing a presentation about presentations, about presentation tips. And it's all going really well, when all of a sudden, I get this notification. And if you're not sure what to focus on, it's up there. So good luck today, right? You're going to do great. And like, I could roll with that and move forward and be okay. But then I get that. And it's not just one blowy kiss, right? It's 2. And like, how do you recover from that? And if any of you guys remember when you were a little kid and maybe you're with all your friends and your mom like rushes out the door and gives you like a big kiss in front of all your friends. It's kind of like that. And so now you know why I'm afraid of my wife and presentations. So in addition to learning how to turn off notifications on your computer, I wanted to share just some lessons from my own career journey, and in the course of that, just share a little bit about myself as well. I was born in Hong Kong, but our family moved to the Bay Area when I was about 3. And so I've lived in the Bay Area pretty much most of my life. My professional career has been in this part of the Bay Area that we affectionately like to refer to as Silicon Valley. So some of you guys may recognize the screen from the HBO show of the same name that could be painfully accurate at times, but that's where I've spent my career. And I wanted to take you on that journey with me. And so at the beginning of my career, I started on the agency side at a small boutique agency called Cheskin Research. And I had the privilege of working with really prominent brands in the Silicon Valley. And that was an awesome experience. So my first kind of takeaway as I reflect on my career is that if you're in the market research industry, everyone should spend some time on the agency side. Just because you learn so much about different methodologies, different industries. And so I highly recommend if you're in research, definitely spend some time, preferably at the beginning of your career, on the agency side. From there, I went on to Visa, where I worked on a number of different initiatives, but the highlight for me was working in the digital payment space and the whole, smartphone, mobile payments, and doing research in that area. And that was like super fun. And my takeaway from my time at Visa, and I was there for, a large number of years, but one of the great things, and the thing that I would impart with you, is that if you have the power or the ability to affect what industry you work in, I would choose an industry that is riding a secular wave or a secular trend. And the thing that I learned at Visa, that even though I was there for a number of years, it always seemed like business was just getting better and better and better. And it's just because at Visa, we knew that people were using paper forms of money less and less, like cash and check were being used less and less every year, and electronic forms of money were being being used more and more. And so when I think about being in an industry that is riding a secular wave or a secular trend, Vision Critical is very much in that same space in my mind, because more and more companies are recognizing the importance of being customer-centric and just really having a focus on their customers. And at the same time, all these same companies are all wanting their insights faster and faster. And that's exactly what Vision Critical provides for us, and that's why we partner with them. So yeah, that's my takeaway. If you can be in an industry that's riding a secular trend, by all means, do it. And then after Visa, I went to a company called Logitech. And then, frankly, I'm not sure. In Australia and APAC, are you guys familiar with Logitech? They make keyboards and computer peripherals. Perfect. So most people are familiar with Logitech. And whenever I think about Logitech, I always have a little bit of a guilty smile on my face. And the reason why is because I supported the gaming group. And I remember in my first week at Logitech, I went into my boss's office. Her name was Alice. And I was like, Alice, I need to carve out 2 days straight to play games. And I was a little nervous. I didn't know what she was going to say. And do you know what Alice said? She said, absolutely. I was like, yes, right? Because Alice understood that you got to use your own products. And there's that saying that, you should never trust a skinny cook. Like, you got to eat your own food, right? You got to use your own products. So for you guys, that's my main takeaway from my time at Logitech is use the products that you guys are selling. And in the course of that, get closer to your customers. So all that brings me to today, where I'm at LinkedIn. And I absolutely love LinkedIn. And my wife will tell you I have a natural love for LinkedIn. I love the people at LinkedIn. I love the culture. And I love the vision. And I wanted to talk about each one of those with you guys. So let me talk about the people at LinkedIn. So the picture here is all my stakeholders at LinkedIn. So this represents the consumer marketing team at LinkedIn, who I support on a day-to-day basis with agile research. And they're some of the smartest, most fun, and member-focused people at LinkedIn. And just if you're curious, this was at a marketing offsite, and the theme was wear what you wanted to be when you were a kid. So for me, I wanted to be a baseball player. You see like an artist in there, a couple of doctors, and a bunch of people who weren't playing along. So. The next is LinkedIn's vision. And so I know a lot of you guys are familiar with LinkedIn, use it yourself, but maybe you might not be familiar with the vision that we have at LinkedIn. And our vision is to create economic opportunity for every member of the global workforce. That's the vision. And the way we're going to do that is the creation of the world's first economic graph. And what we mean by that is that we want to digitally map the global economy. And so for each one of these, what we want is a digital representation or profile of each member in the global workforce, a profile for every company in the globe, a digital representation of all the jobs in the world, as well as the skills required for those jobs, and then having a digital representation of all the higher educational organizations out there in the world. And then lastly, to basically make it easy for our members, companies, and universities to share all their professionally relevant knowledge across the graph. And in doing so, our hope is to be able to lift and transform the global economy. Pretty ambitious stuff, right? Our mission ultimately is to connect the world's professionals, all of you guys, to make them more productive and successful. Okay, so that's our vision and mission. In terms of LinkedIn's culture, these are the 6 core values that LinkedIn had from the very beginning, some 15 years ago. And I'm only going to talk about the first 2. So starting out with members first. At LinkedIn, it is all about our members. So every product that we create, every decision that we make, everything we do should have the member as its focus. And as a market research professional, that's as good as it gets, right? Because our job is to be the voice of the member and to have that embraced so fully on the company level is pretty special. The second core value I wanted to talk about is relationships matter. And life is all about relationships, right? And that's no different in our professional lives. And I can say that, some of my most important professional relationships were actually forged at a Vision Critical conference just like this. And so in that spirit, what I wanted to do is actually do a little activity with you guys. And in a second, I'm going to actually invite you guys to all get up and find 2 or 3 people around you. And all I want you to do is just share your name and the company you work for. 2 or 3 people, okay? And we'll go from there. So everybody up and meet 2 or 3 people. Just share your name and company. Okay. Okay, let's wrap this up. All right, folks, let's wrap this up. You guys are doing an awesome job. This has actually gone much better than I was hoping it would. So, all right, so that was a great exercise. How many of you guys met like 2 or 3 people that you didn't know before? Perfect. Okay, so now I want you guys to imagine with me for a second. Let's say it's a year from now. And a year from now, you're looking for a job. And the company that you want to work for is a company where you don't know a single person except for that person that you just met like 10 seconds ago. That's the only person you know. So what do? Well, let's fix that right now. I'm going to ask you guys, how many of you guys have the LinkedIn app on your phone? Okay, the large majority of you guys. If you don't, feel free to download it after the session. But what I'm going to do is actually have you guys pull out your phones, and I am going to do an activity with you. This is actually like a real-life beta. And so this is a feature that we actually just launched at LinkedIn fairly recently. So pull out your phone, make sure Bluetooth is on, launch the LinkedIn app, and at the bottom of the LinkedIn app, you'll see something called My Network, noted by the 2 people icon down there. And if you tap that, what I want you to look for is a new feature that we call Find Nearby. And go ahead and tap that. And when you tap that, there may be some permissions or whatnot. They may ask you to turn on Bluetooth. But go ahead and tap that. And if this goes well, if this goes according to plan, what you should see is a huge list of people who basically represent the people in this room. Do you guys see people in that list? Okay. So my challenge to you is to actually reach out to the 2 or 3 people you were just talking to and connect with them. Just add them to your network. It's still going. You got Bob. Okay, is it working, guys? I get some no's, I get some yeses. Okay. Okay, we'll fiddle around with that, during the course of the conference. But yeah, I just wanted to share this with you guys, and I totally recognize that this is something of a superficial exercise, right? But what I would say is, like, during the course of this conference, as you're talking to people, as you're meeting people at the work sessions and whatnot, definitely reach out and connect with them, because one of the things that I've realized, not even as an employee at LinkedIn, but just as a user of LinkedIn myself, is that we're all very much in this together. And there's going to be times where you're going to be able to help someone who's in need. Or you may be that person who needs help. And so LinkedIn is just a great way to be able to connect with people that matter, and just reiterating the point that relationships do matter. All right, at this point, let me shift gears a little bit and talk about our insight communities. And before I do that, I'll just share a little bit about what led to our insight communities. And the first thing was that, traditional market research for us was just too slow. The typical research study we did at LinkedIn took about 1 to 2 months, sometimes even 3 months, and that was way too slow for our product teams. And what I was realizing was that product development cycles were quickening to the point where our product development cycles are more on the order of being measured in weeks, maybe months, as opposed to years and quarters. And because they were happening so quickly, and because traditional market research was so slow for us, we were leaving a lot of questions unanswered. And our PMMs were basically going on their gut instincts, or doing their own forms of research, which was not always the most sound research. And so when I think about our own insight communities, this is the phrase that always comes to my mind. Because our communities have grown quite a bit in our very short tenure with Vision Critical. We started our first relationship with Vision Critical in 2016 with a single consumer community of about 5,000 people. And when I say consumers, basically that's the free version of LinkedIn that most people know. Fast forward to 2017, and we had doubled that community to be 10,000. And then in addition to doubling the size just to accommodate more studies and more audiences, we have monetization businesses at LinkedIn that not a lot of folks know about. But essentially we have divisions that are geared towards we have products that are geared towards the hiring of people, a premium product, a sales product, and a marketing product. All which generate revenue for LinkedIn. And so those teams heard about our communities, and they wanted communities of their own. So 2017, just last year, we had 5 communities. And fast forward to this quarter, and we are on the cusp of launching our very first international communities that I'm really excited about. So we're looking to launch in China, India, and Germany. And we'll have 5,000 in China and India, and 2,000 in Germany. So all told, by the end of 2018, we'll have 8 separate insight communities. And I think this slide, more than any others, just really demonstrates the value that we're getting from our insight communities, and just the fact that we're able to leverage insights so quickly with Vision Critical has been a huge game changer for us. All right, so I've talked a little bit about the growth of our insight communities. Let me just share a few examples of how we've used our insight communities. And the first example has to do with the profile picture on LinkedIn. And just curious, when you guys think about your own LinkedIn profiles, how many of you guys have a profile photo? Okay, probably about 80%. All right. One of the things we know from other research that we've done is that if you have a LinkedIn profile photo, you're much more likely to have a personal vested interest in that profile and making sure it's comprehensive and that's really representative of who you are. But for the vast majority of our members, their profile photos look like, or their profiles look like this. And so most people have not uploaded a photo. And so our marketing team, understanding how important a profile photo is to how invested a person is in their profile, they wanted to know, why aren't people uploading their photos? And because one of the other things we know is if you have a profile photo on LinkedIn, your profile is 14 times more likely to be viewed than someone who does not have their profile photo uploaded. So the marketing team wanted to understand, for those folks who didn't upload a photo, why didn't they? And so we tasked the insight communities for that. And one of the cool things, I was actually just talking to someone at lunch about this, is the fact that for our communities, we're able to tie this back to our big data. And so we know, the people who have profile photos, the people who don't, and we're able to basically flag the people who don't have profile photos on our communities and just serve a study to them. So in this case, we served a study to the folks who didn't have a profile photo and simply asked them, hey, what's keeping you from uploading your photo? And the primary things that came up was, the first thing was that they just didn't have a quality photo of themselves. And this is a relatively easy problem to address. The second one is actually a lot more challenging because it's not a technological issue, right? People concerned with some sort of bias, whether it's your age or your ethnicity, physical appearance, what have you. They're afraid of some sort of bias. And so that's frankly a lot more challenging. And so my takeaway from this study at a broader level is that, sometimes a research study is not going to tell you like the magic answer. Sometimes it's just about understanding like what you're up against and what you need to overcome. The second example I wanted to share with you is a study we did earlier this year related to job descriptions. And just curious, in the group here, how many of you guys have hiring as part of your job description? You guys need to hire folks. Okay, so maybe like a third or a fourth. And the rest of you guys, listen up, because someday you may need to hire folks and write a job description yourself. And so the hiring team was trying to understand, hey, what's important to people in a typical job description? And so we shared a job description that was tailored to a person's profession, and we basically leveraged the highlighter tool, which is so awesome on Spark and Vision Critical. And we had them basically highlight those areas of the job description that they found important for their own use. And what we found was that the most important things related to the day-to-day responsibilities of the role, naturally things like salary and benefits. But one of the things that we weren't expecting, and one of the things I see in a lot of job descriptions, including our own job descriptions at LinkedIn, that people did not want to see, was this whole area of culture. And that may be kind of surprising to you, right? Because culture, we all embrace it. I just spent a few slides talking about how much I like LinkedIn, how much I love LinkedIn culture. But people didn't want to see that. And it's not because culture is not important. It's just that they don't need to see that in the job description itself. There's other places where you could talk about your company's culture, just not in the job description. So that was a learning for us. And that was really cool. The other thing I would say about this, and I think, someone was talking about this earlier, but it's the idea of not, if you have the option to not ask a ton of questions or a whole litany of questions, in this case, we got so much insight out of a simple highlighter exercise. And I would say, don't forget the highlighter tool. It's really awesome in terms of the insights that you can get, and they don't require taxing your respondents with, 12, 15 questions or whatnot. The last example I wanted to share with you is that a little while ago, we had completely revamped the entire LinkedIn desktop experience. And what the team wanted to understand is how our members felt about the core areas of LinkedIn's site. So things like the jobs area, the profile, the feed, etc. And we leveraged our insight communities to understand what people liked, what they didn't like about each one of these areas. But if you had asked me prior to doing this study, I was always of the frame of mind that, hey, this is vision critical. I always tell this to our PMMs. It's for very focused studies, for small studies. It's not for a big exploratory study. This was a very broad study. And what I realized was that if you have the luxury of a community that's large enough, there's no reason why you can't carve it up into smaller pieces with each one of those pieces addressing a specific aspect of a broader research study. And that's exactly what we did here. And we had 6 different studies basically culminate into one very large study. And the insight communities were instrumental in helping us revamp our desktop experience. So earlier I showed you this slide, and if you guys are an astute observer, you'll notice that there's one of me, and there's about 35 or so PMMs, product marketing managers, that I support. And so the very natural question is, how on earth do you support all those people all by your lonesome? And I'll give you 3 answers to that. And the first answer is that I don't. I totally leverage a team. So I support our consumer business, which is those PMMs there. I have a counterpart in market research who manages our monetization insight communities. And I also have an operations team who helps with programming the surveys. And we're beginning to explore leveraging contractors also to help with scaling out our research. The other thing is that we have an internal wiki. It's a Vision Critical wiki where we talk about best practices for our insight communities, use cases, as well as prior studies. And then lastly, we have all sorts of templates, right? So templates for surveys where we talk about, hey, this is a typical highlighter question, lead in, this is a typical multiple choice question. We have a template for discussion forums, and then we have templates for all the different correspondences that we have, all so that I don't have to reinvent the wheel each time. And then in terms of how we partner, we actually have a very unique partnership model that I'm finding out is actually pretty unique to LinkedIn, in that I totally leverage our PMMs to do the heavy lifting. So this is Julia. She's one of our awesome PMMs at LinkedIn. And I lean on her really heavily, and all the PMMs for that matter, to actually do the analysis. So at the closing of a study, they will actually do the analysis, they'll read through the verbatims, they'll come up with their own research findings, and then I, as the researcher, will vet that to make sure that what they're saying is sound from a research standpoint. But for the most part, that's how I'm able to scale myself across 30 some odd PMM partners. And quite frankly, it's worked really well for us. And so when I think about the impact of our insight communities, from a product standpoint, the impact has been great. I mean, as opposed to having to wait, 2 months for a typical study to complete, our teams are able to, act on those insights in a couple of weeks. Engineering is a really scarce resource at LinkedIn, and a lot of times those engineers want to work on like everything under the moon, and a lot of times they want to work on stuff that they find sexy. But our insight communities have been really instrumental in helping our engineers prioritize the specific products and the specific features that they work on to ensure that they're working on stuff that our members, you guys, actually want to use and features that you guys find relevant. And then in terms of marketing, definitely the insight communities have helped us craft marketing messaging, positioning, and copy. And then lastly, culture. Culture. Like, have you ever thought about what the impact of your insight communities are, or what the impact of your research is on your company's culture? And at LinkedIn, I can very confidently say that our insight communities have actually been very much an enabler for our culture, our members first culture at LinkedIn, just because it's been so easy for our stakeholders to leverage the tool, and Vision Critical has been such a great partner in that regard. And so as I wrap up and in closing, I want to say that I've seen a lot of change in my career. Technology is moving faster and faster, product development is moving faster and faster, and yet market research has evolved to support that ever-growing need for customer insights. And the insight communities have played a huge role in that. And so, as you're here at the conference and as you're attending the different work sessions and hearing different speakers, I just invite you guys to really just to soak it in. Meet a ton of people, talk to a ton of folks, connect with them on LinkedIn, and know that you're in the right place. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay, so just got time for one question, and it's going to come from me because I've got the microphone. So Tony, fantastic presentation. I hope that hope your wife and kids were impressed, because I certainly was. So, I guess you talked a little while about your product marketing managers being, quite hands-on with the tool, and that's the way you manage. I mean, how do they feel about doing the heavy lifting themselves?
Yeah, and that's such a good question, because it's not the typical way of things, right? So I actually had a chance to speak at Microsoft recently, and just a lot of you guys know that Microsoft purchased LinkedIn about a year and a half ago, and so we had a meeting up in Redmond, Washington, and I shared with them how our PMMs do the heavy lifting, and they were like, really? Like, that's your job? Yeah. And I say, yeah, typically it has been my job, but that's the only way I've been able to scale myself. And frankly, the only reason why that's possible is because we have such a unique members first culture. And that whole members first culture comes from Jeff Weiner, our CEO, and it permeates down, and everyone has bought into it. So our PMMs are very much thirsting for the member point of view of themselves, and so they'll gladly read through verbatims, they'll gladly moderate discussion forums on their own. And so the short answer is they have no qualms about doing the heavy lifting, because it brings them that much closer to the member themselves.
Fantastic. That's a great learning. I just want to say thank you. I think the members first philosophy has been from the start with Jeff, but it permeates through the organisation, and every conversation I have with you is just always about members. Absolutely loved your talk. I've loved hearing about that relationship matters. And most importantly, one of the key themes of today for me is that we're all in this together. You said that, and it's true. You know, we're all sitting here and we're all got challenges in the organisation, but, you know, to collaborate and talk to each other, share your issues, learn from each other, and let's try and change this thing as quickly as we can. So please put your hands together for Tony Tong. Thank you, Tony. Thank you.